Okay, so today is the first day of going over the 4 types of tissue. We're going to do epithelial tissue first. Epithelial means covering. In fact, the prefix epith, epith, means covering or coating. This type of tissue coats surfaces. It lines your organs. It also is responsible for actions like absorption, filtration, excretion. You'll see all those. Here we go. So, epithelial tissue basics. Remember, there's only 4 types of tissue. This is one of the 4. Epith means laid on or covering or on top of. Like, what layer of skin are you all looking at on me right now? My epidermis. Now, some of you may have known that. Not everybody knows that. You will learn that in this class. Your epidermis is your topmost layer of skin. This is what we're all looking at when we see each other. Epi means on top of, or covering, or coating. This tissue covers your organs. It lines your hollow organs, like your esophagus, your stomach, your intestine. It also makes up glands. And I need you all to really understand this one before we get way too deep into this class. A gland is a structure that secretes something. You have sweat glands. They secrete sweat. You have sebaceous glands. They secrete oil from your skin. Like you all are teenagers. You're kind of greasy. That's your sebaceous glands. Then you have your endocrine glands, like your pituitary gland, your thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, thymus gland in your heart, your adrenal glands. In your pancreas is actually a gland too. So glands secrete, and they're mostly made of epithelial tissue. Now, here are some other functions. They're used for protection, absorption, filtration, excretion, sensory reception, and as I said, secretion for glands. Now, to really test you guys, if you really want to make me happy and get on my good side, I want you to participate. Honestly, former student to current students, the worst thing you do is be silent. Truly. I don't care if you're wrong. I want you to participate. I'd rather you try and not succeed than not even try at all. If you get it wrong, so what? We'll correct it. So as you're writing these down, I want you to think what system of your 11 systems is being described by each of those functions. If you have one in mind, raise your hand and I'll confirm you or not. Aubrey? For which one? Well, you have all these different functions. You have protection, absorption, filtration, excretion, sensory reception, secretion. Which one of those are you saying is endocrine? No, not excretion. Kylie? It would be secretion. Sebastian? That is correct. Any others? Well, the glands, yeah, but we're talking about the actual action. Yes. Yep, and excretory is also urinary. 2 more, absorption and sensory reception.
Would sensory reception be the nervous?
It certainly would. Yes.
Absorption.
Correct. Well done. Happy. I like this. So these are just a few systems that actually have epithelial tissue. Integumentary, digestive, urinary, nervous, endocrine. Your lungs have epithelial tissue. It's in your air sacs. You'll learn that. So there's another system. So these are just a few, not all of them. Okay. Next, some characteristics of epithelial tissue. I want to specifically zoom in on these guys over here. How many cells do you see? What are those purple things inside the cell? The nucleus. What is the yellow stuff within the cell? Very good. Cytoplasm. And what is the blue thing that's surrounding the cell? The cell membrane. And I want you to look very closely. What that layer on the bottom of the cells is called the basement membrane. Where do you think the basement is? Top or bottom? It's on the bottom of those cells. And then below the basement membrane is going to be your connective tissue. To give you an idea of how this looks, here's the slide you're going to see a little later. You don't need to draw any of this, just pay attention. So let's say I took a cross section of your skin. This would be your epidermis. This would be your dermis. Your epidermis is epithelial tissue. Your dermis is connective tissue. What's this layer that separates the two? It's called the basement membrane. So the basement membrane is between the connective layer and the epithelial layer. Now, the diagrams that you guys have at your desks are just drawings. Rather easy. What if you looked at that? This is an actual microscope slide. It is a stained slide. A dye, D-Y-E, like you use on Easter, is used to give these cells color, because if you didn't have it, they would all appear clear, and it's really hard to see something that's clear under the microscope. Tell me again what epi means, or epith means. On top of. So where do you think the epithelial layer of tissue is on this slide? It is on top. If I were to draw it for you, whoops. Let's go here. It's right there. That's the epithelial layer of tissue, the top layer. Everything underneath that is going to be the connective layer. Okay. Cells have polarity. And when I say polarity, I don't mean a positive charge and a negative charge. What I mean is they have a top and a bottom. When we talk about polarity, we mean opposites. What is the opposite of top? What is the opposite of positive? What is the opposite of happy? You ever heard of the condition called bipolarism? They have like happy moments and then sad moments. Bipolar. Pole means opposites. Oh my gosh, I can't believe Lance is dating that girl. They couldn't be any more polar opposite. Saying something is polar opposite is being redundant. You're saying like opposite. So when we say cells have poles, they have a top and they have a bottom. The top is called the apical surface. The bottom is called the basal surface. The basal surface is what is anchored to the basement membrane. And the apical surface is actually facing outward. When you look at the description for apical surfaces, you see microvili and cilia. I'll explain to you what those are in the next slide. It's going to be pretty important for you to see them. But the basal surface is pretty easy. It's just the bottom side, and that is attached to the basement membrane. The basement membrane is basically like the floor, but there is a layer beneath the floor. It's called your connective tissue. Okay. Caught up. Okay, guys, moving on. So I want to, before I reveal what's here, I want to show you guys, one sec. Oh, the microvili and the cilia, okay? So allow me to show you what microvili looks like. Whoops, this is not what I wanted to do. Here we go. Microvili. All right, so let's say you have a top of a cell surface. It looks like this. You don't need to draw this. Please just pay attention, because when you're writing, you tend not to pay attention to what it is. The way that I used to learn this, and I always try to compare things to things I know. I want it to be relative to me. And Emma's sweater would be a good example. Emma, can you raise your arm up and roll up your sleeve? Now, I don't know if you guys can see, she has a black sweater, but you all know what a rolled up sweater sleeve looks like. It has a lot of folds in it, right? And if she were to stretch it out, go ahead and stretch it out, all those folds go away and it covers way more surface area. So the microvili, actually, when you stretch it out, can cover a whole lot more surface. This is really important for your intestines. If you look at your intestines when you have no food in your digestive system, the circumference of your intestines is actually pretty small. That's why they're called small intestine. But when they're filled with food, and I should actually draw it better, it looks like this. This would be much better. All those little finger-like projections are villi. But then when your intestine's filled with food, it looks like this. The microvilli and the villi stretch out to hold all that food. When we actually do our dissections, some of you are going to get a pig with poop in its intestines. It will happen. The poop is going to cause the intestines to stretch out. If you have a pig that has empty intestines, it's going to be very constricted. Okay. Now, as far as cilia is concerned, let's draw that. Cilia is what was on the previous cells. So let's say I have a layer of cells. Here they all are. And on top of them, it looks like little hairs. These hairs are called cilia, and what they do is they help to catch things that you might have swallowed or ingested, like especially in your respiratory system. When you are breathing, we breathe in a lot of crap that's in the air, pollen, dust, dander, other pollutants in the air, and this cilia catches it, and it tries to keep it from entering the depths of your lungs, so you don't get that stuff trapped in your lungs. And sometimes it can really stick to your lungs, and that can cause maybe an infection. Then you have an upper respiratory tract infection. You're hawking a lot of slime and loogies because you have stuff caught in your throat, and all that slime is trying to catch it. And you're overproducing all that phlegm, and you're hawking and just sneezing. And I'm sure you've heard a wet cough before. We all know what that sounds like. That's 10 when you get stuff caught in your upper respiratory tract. Okay, well, the question here is, what is one way you can tell a tissue is epithelial? It is on the surface. It's on the top. So if you look at this slide, you see the cilia on the top, on the very, very top of the cells. That is cilia, little hair-like projections. And then the cells are on top of are the epithelial cells. Do you see the basement membrane? And then what type of tissue is below the basement membrane? All those little circles are not cells. All those little circles are nuclei. Every single one of them. Later this week, I want to do the lab with you guys where you're going to be using microscopes, and you're going to take a toothpick. You're going to scrape the inside of your cheek, and you're going to look at your own cells underneath the microscope. Have any of you ever done a lab like that before? Okay, 3 people. So a lot of you will see your own cells for the first time in a long time. We're going to skip that slide. Okay. Anybody know what vascular means? Lance is holding out his arms like, yeah, my arms are so vascular. You can see all the blood vessels. So if vascular means blood flow, what is the opposite of vascular? If you put the letter A in front of a word, it means the opposite of that word. Avascular. Your epithelial cells are avascular. Your epithelial tissue is avascular. So look at this, everybody. Look at me. If you're online watching, what I'm about to do is I'm about to take an unfolded paper clip and scrape my entire arm. See that? If you're in the front row, you probably see a scar. It'll go away. Do you see any blood? I did not get below my epidermis. My epidermis is made of epithelial tissue. The fact that I'm not bleeding tells me I did not get down to the dermis. The dermis is where the blood vessels are. I didn't get cut. If you cut yourself and blood is drawn, you went below your epithelial tissue and you got into your connective tissue. Now, your epithelial tissue is avascular, but it does have some nerves. If you look in the word innervated, what word do you see inside the word innervated? Nerve. There are some nerves, but not a lot. I just scraped myself like this. I mean, I'm pushing out pretty good. I mean, I feel it, but it's not excruciating. It's not like I have to stop. You have a whole lot more nerves deeper into your connective tissue. If I took this paperclip and went, and then I went tearing across my dermis, I would probably be cringing. This didn't hurt too much. It really didn't hurt at all. There's not a lot of nerve endings there. You can't feel something if there's no nerves. There's a movie with Adam Sandler where he got frostbite in his foot and his butler was just hammering at it and he didn't feel a thing. The nerves were completely frozen. When people get a 3rd-degree burn, they don't feel it for a few days because the nerves are seared shut. I mean, it looks gruesome. You're like, oh my gosh, how are they not in pain? They don't feel it. You can't feel something if there's no nerves there. Your epithelial cells and tissue are highly regenerative. They go through a lot of mitosis. In fact, hypothetically, your entire epidermis sheds off in a month. Today is September 13th. The very, very bottom of your epidermis just formed. In 30 days, that layer that's on the very bottom will rise to the surface and it will shed. And so between now and then, every layer above that bottom layer is going to go away. And you will create an entirely new layer of skin. You shed your skin off every couple days. Yes.
So it hurts. So back to the burn thing, it hurts really bad when you pull off the skin, the burnt skin, right? Is that because they're pulling?
It depends what type of burn it is.
Well, 3rd degree.
They won't feel it. Not for a few days.
Even if they pull off.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know this is gonna sound really dumb, but if it has like a high mitotic rate, does that mean it's like more likely to get cancer?
Yeah. That's not very dumb at all. There's no dumb question here, Sebastian. His question was, if it's highly mitotic, which means it divides a lot, does the risk of cancer increase? Yeah, because cancer is just where cells that are replicated, cells were mutated and they go bad. If you're making more cells, that chance increases. So yeah. In fact, I want to zoom in on this, guys. This is the top layer, which looks like a golden color. That is your epidermis. And if you can look at this layer here, you see my laser pointer? That is the basement membrane between your epidermis and your dermis. All this pink stuff where the capillary is, that's your dermis. You know, that's where they put tattoo ink. Would it make sense to put a tattoo in your epidermis? Why? It sheds. Yeah, that's where you put a temporary tattoo for a little kid. Well, right here, here's something that'll bring us all together. You know, race has been a kind of a hot topic last couple of years. But biologically speaking, if you just go down a couple millimeters, we're all pink. No matter what your race is, we're all pink. And we all have the same number of cells called melanocytes. A melanocyte is a cell on the bottom of your epidermis that actually gives you skin color. No matter if you're black, white, or anywhere in between, we all have the same amount of melanocytes, the cells that give us skin color. But what actually determines how much melanin, which is color, is secreted? Your genetics. Your genetics determine how much melanin is actually secreted. The more melanin you have, the darker you are. The less melanin you have, the lighter you are. Like in my hair, I have brown hair. I have a lot of melanin in my hair, but my eyes are blue. That's very little melanin. If you have blonde hair, blue eyes, and white skin, like you have hardly any melanin. And then I'm sure you've heard of albinism, right? Albinism is no pigment. And albinos have pink eyes. Do you know why? They don't have blue or brown or green or anything like that. They're pink.
they don't have the top layer.
No, they don't have any melanin. So what is actually causing the pink color? The blood flow behind their eyes. That's why they're pink. The blood flow behind their eyes. We'll talk about vitiligo and other conditions and genetic conditions later in this unit, or next unit, actually, we get to skin. So let's look at this next image. Which of these wounds only penetrated the epithelial tissue? Left or right, Sebastian? Why? Yeah, there's no blood on the left. Remember that the epithelial tissue is avascular. There's no blood. Okay, but the cells are innervating. They do contain some sensory nerves, but I want to tell you, not a lot. Have you ever seen a fly land on someone's skin and they didn't know it? That's just proof right there that the nerves are not that plentiful and they're not that strong on your epithelial tissue. Okay, now we get to naming. Yes, Aubrey.
I was gonna say that some mosquitoes, no,
They have to get your blood.
can
They-
you hold them in place? Like if you pinch your skin, will they like can't get out?
I don't understand what you mean.
Like, yeah, if it goes through into the capillary.
So you're talking about that little straw thing that a mosquito has called a proboscis. If it's piercing your skin and then you pinch your skin, will they get trapped? Is that what you're saying? I mean, that's a great experiment to try at home next time you get bit by a mosquito. Okay, now it's time for naming, guys. You're going to need to learn how to name these tissues. So lesson number 1, if you see one layer of cells in epithelial tissue, the term is called simple. Simple means one layer. If you see multiple layers of cells on epithelial tissue, the term is stratified. Now there is a trump card here. It's kind of the freak show of this tissue. Everybody has a black sheep in the family. It's called pseudostratified. You know what the prefix pseudo means? Fake, false. There's a branch of science called pseudoscience. The earth is flat. The earth is 6,000 years old. Bleach will kill COVID when you drink it. That kind of stuff. Pseudostratified looks like it is multiple layers, but it is actually only one layer. That's the one that you're going to have to give just an extra ounce of brain power to be able to tell the difference between. Pseudostratified literally means fake multi-layers. It just is one layer. It's actually just simple, but it looks like it's multiple. You'll see that for yourself. Now, in the event that you are not sure what type of cell it is, whether it's squamous, cuboidal, or stratified, or columnar, look at the very top layer when you're looking at these examples. The top layer is the apical layer. So I just kind of gave away the lead here. There's 3 types of cells you'll be looking at: squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. Squamous are squash, like a pancake. Cuboidal, guess what shape they are? Cube shaped. And columnar, guess what shape those are? Column, like a standing up rectangle. So, what types of cells do those look like to you? Squamous, cuboidal, or columnar? Those are squamous. Now let's take a look at the very top. How many cells do you all see? Very good. What is that tissue underneath the epithelial tissue? Connective tissue. How many layers of cells do you see? So what is the term? Simple. What type of cell are they? Squamous, cuboidal, or columnar are your choices. So we're going to say simple, squamous, and then the third word is always going to be epithelium. 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 So that tissue on the top is called simple squamous epithelium. Let's look at the bottom. Is that one layer or multiple layers? Multiple. Now you might be saying, Mr. Thorson, those look like different types. What do you do in the event that you see cells that look like they're different types? Look at the very top. What type of cells do those look like to you? Those are squamous. In fact, this is what your epidermis looks like. When your cells get closer to the surface of your skin, they get flatter and flatter and flatter. This would be what? Simple or stratified? What's the type of cell? And then what's the third term? This is stratified squamous epithelium. Sounding like doctors already. Okay, and then here's the black sheep. Pseudostratified. Do you guys see any cells going from that gray basement membrane to the very top? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cells going from top to bottom. Do you see any cells that are not making it from top to bottom? Yeah. This is called pseudostratified. If you don't see them, here. Is that cell going from top to bottom? Nope. How about that cell? Yes. So the fact that you simply see a cell going from the top to the bottom tells you that it is just one layer. These are the pseudostratified tissues. So as far as shapes are concerned, or excuse me, the cell shapes, we have squamous, we have cuboidal, we have columnar. There they are. Pseudostratified is its own little, they kind of resemble columnar, but we're just going to say pseudostratified. You would find them in your lungs and your airways. We are going to have an activity later, maybe tomorrow, where you're going to find out where in the body these are all found. Okay. Can you guys, if you were to go to downtown Tampa, where the tallest buildings on the Florida Gulf Coast are in Tampa, can you tell how tall those buildings are if you were flying a helicopter right over them? No. You have to look at them from the side. You cannot tell if a layer of tissue is one layer or multiple layers by looking at it from the top or the bottom. You have to look at it from the side or the front. So you cannot use a transverse plane. You have to use a sagittal or a frontal plane. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to have you guys start to fill in your papers I handed out to you. This is just practice. You're not going to turn these in. Let's see if you can figure out which one is which, and I want to hear you say the entire proper name. All right. That first image. How many layers of epithelial cells do you see? So what is the first word? Simple. What is the shape of the cells? Columnar. What were you going to say, Sebastian?
I was looking at this paper.
We're looking at the screen. Columnar, and then what's the third word going to be? Epithelium. So this is simple columnar epithelium. Which of the images on your handout is simple columnar epithelium? C is correct. And you are my students. You are going to learn to spell things properly. If you guys are going to represent me, you're going to spell. I know I'm evil, aren't I? Mr. Thorson makes us spell things properly. It does matter. Spelling things correctly does matter. Let's go to the next one. One layer or multiple layers? So what's the term? Stratified. What type of cell? Correct. And the third term? Stratified squamous epithelium is correct. What number or what letter is that for you? D, delta. Remember that as the cells get closer to the top, they get flatter and flatter and flatter. That's like how your skin is. Okay. Next, can anybody go and just tell me that without having to break it down? Amara? Very good. Simple squamous epithelium. This is found in the air sacs of your lungs. The air sacs in your lungs is where you exchange gases. They have to be so thin that gas must be able to travel through them. And if, what? A is simple squamous epithelium. And if you vape, these are the cells that you were destroying. They're the ones that help exchange gases with your blood. Not smart. Okay. Alex, can you name that entire tissue?
Would it be simple?
Cuboidal.
Good afternoon, campers. Please pardon the following interruption.
Hold on. Pause in the video.
Join us
We'll
again
finish
this
and we'll be
Friday
done.
morning at 7:45 on the main patio for our club fair. Check out the clubs. and get-
Guys, we're not done yet. Just chill. We're gonna let name these last two and we're done.
Homecoming court votes and tomorrow night on campus. Also, nominations for senior calendar and tomorrow night on campus. And polls for sophomore and freshman class officers are on campus. Please do not vote more than once or all your votes will be disqualified. Seniors, you're now dismissed.
Okay, let's finish this. Whoops, hold on. All right, got a little stuck there. One second. Yes. Okay, Alex, you were saying? I don't know why it's not doing this, but yeah, the one on the bottom. Sorry guys, it's not recording, or it is recording. The one on the bottom left is simple cuboidal epithelium. What letter is that on your sheet? And the last one, brown Emma. Hold on. You guys are seeing something different than me. Yeah, what's the last one? Pseudostratified. Okay, got a little difficulty there. Okay,